All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight on this sunshiny night. I know that we've had some cloudy weather and it's supposed to maybe rain again. So the fact that you're choosing to be with us is greatly appreciated. We know that you all are busy and you have things that you could be doing. And so coming and listening to these great speakers and listening to an important topic is appreciated by all of us. And so, as Jerry said, I'm Chad Cooper. I'm the Executive Director of Sustainable Sanctuary Coalition. If you don't know who we are an interfaith environmental organization. And our kind of mission is to engage people and institutions of faith in doing creation care, trying to do sustainable work with the earth. And so some people are involved in a organized congregation and some people are not. You know, our faith groups range from, Methodist to Baptist to Jewish to, we've had Muslim participants before, all walks of life. And I'm sure we've even got some agnostics in there, and we'll even welcome those who are atheists, because we know that caring for the earth is something that we all come together to do if it's going to be successful. And so before I turn it over to Jerry, a few announcements. We're meeting tonight, obviously, but we have the second installment of Mary Silwance's presentation this coming Monday. So a week from tonight, we'll be gathering in the same spot on Zoom to hear her second presentation on deconstructing sustainability to reconstruct relationships. I'll be sending out an email on that this week, be putting it on Facebook, our Facebook page. And if you go to our webpage, sssckc.org, you can link straight to our Facebook page and see what presentations we have coming up. So thank you. Also, we welcome donations. You can donate to SSC from our webpage. You can also email me if you'd like, and I can help coordinate that. But anyway, without further ado, we want to thank you all for coming tonight, and I'll turn it over to Jerry for a few words. Jerry.
Okay, I'll ask Diane if there's anything she would want to say before we get into the program. I think she kind of gave us some information earlier. Anything more, Diane?
Just appreciate everyone that's participating tonight and the presenters. It's really very exciting. And I certainly want to honor Jim Turner for his persistence in working on soil nutrition and micronutrients, and everyone on the panel as well. But just grateful that this is happening, and looking forward to the presentation as well as what's going on at Johnson County Community College on Saturday. Yeah. Thank you.
Jim, is there anything you want to say? You and your cat.
Yes, thank you, Jerry. In the past year, I've learned that America's soil needs saving. And with Russia attacking Ukraine, that impacts fertilizer markets. And so farmers need to change their practices, and lots of them realize it, I think. Scientific understanding of soil has expanded greatly. It is very possible to have large-scale change in how our farmers and landowners deal with soil if we build a collective will to do that. And our speakers are deeply engaged in that. I've been privileged to be on weekly Zoom conversations with them and others on how we can spread this word and get involvement. So I'm happy to turn it over to Hilary to begin. Hilary, her career is focused on giving enlightened care to our urban lawns. Marty Kraft is a gardener. He will tell how the Earth's climate and weather is impacted by our care of soil. And Mark Zembowski operates a greenhouse business and works with others to spread his methods. Hilary, please proceed.
Hi, thank you, Jim. And thank you, Jerry, and thank you all for the opportunity to speak. By training, I have a master's in landscape architecture, but when I was looking for regenerative design, I found I had to learn soil microbiology. So I've been very fortunate in the mentors that I've had along the way, and the time I've been able to spend in the lab with various people. There's a lot of ground to cover, and excuse the puns. There's just something about landscape that the puns never seem to end. I'm sorry, let me start sharing my screen. There we go. I'll bring up my PowerPoint. Come on. There we go. Okay. So now is a very dynamic time in soil and climate science. We're getting more information almost weekly on studies that have been done or are being done presently. There's amazing work being done by farmers and ranchers and scientists, all working together and learning from each other. I want to make a big point about our small water cycle, you may have heard it called. So our local weather is responsible for about, or rather 40% of our weather is local weather, and that comes from local conditions. And by the end of my 20 minutes, you'll see how. Jerry said that you've seen the movie Kiss the Ground. It's on Netflix. It is absolutely invaluable. I'm a member. I'm a soil advocate, I guess. And I can't say enough good things about what they're doing. And excuse the sun. It's that time of day. It's coming in at just the right angle. It's kind of blinding me. But anyhow, things that we're taught, you may have heard Bob Berkebile talk about this. We separate out all the sciences as if they work that way in the real world. And we're taught plants separately from weather, separately from soil, but they're actually all part of the same system. But when we're kids, you know, we're taught that you plant a seed and you get this plant that comes up from it, and you get a flower and leaves, and maybe you get a fruit or some veggies from it. And it has a root system, but we don't really talk about soil. You know, we talk about the plant taking up water and nutrient from the soil, but the dirt is just the stuff that's kind of there holding the root in place. And when we get a little bit older, we get the soil triangle. And yes, this talks about sand, silt, and clay, but really it's just telling us about texture. And the context of where your soil is really matters. Soil in the Amazon is different than soil in Missouri, and soil in Missouri is different than soil in Oklahoma, and soil in Oklahoma is different than soil in the steppes of Asia. So context really matters. And all this triangle is telling you about really is about texture. If I gave you a picture of a cow, would you know how the cow works? Well, this picture of soil texture isn't telling you anything more about how soil works than that picture of the cow is telling you how the cow works. It's about physical attributes and not about how it works. If I gave you a cow and I gave you this picture of the cow, could you raise the cow? Well, you could probably keep it alive, but it doesn't tell you how a cow functions. It doesn't tell you what the cow eats or how the cow eats or what happens if the cow doesn't get water, how it produces milk, how it functions. So in the old view of soil, well, we had physical attributes and we had chemical properties, right? So we would do a chemical test. And the one on the left is a saturated paste test. Pretty much tells you what's going to leach from the soil, really doesn't tell you about much of what's really there. This is what, the way they tend to talk about the one that's in the pink is that this is what's immediately available to the plant because we don't look at soil microbes very much. So the plant could get this from the soil without any microbes. But if you take a look at the difference between these two tests, that pink one tells you have almost 21 parts per million of calcium in the soil. So you would look at that and you'd think, oh my God, I need calcium. It doesn't really make sense because our soils are from limestone and limestone is primarily calcium. Our water has so much calcium that the water in the city is an average pH of 10 because there's so much calcium in it. The test on the right is a melic-3 extraction, so it uses a low pH liquid to split the mineral from the soil aggregates. And if you look at calcium on there, you have over 4,000 parts per million calcium. So that melic-3 gives you a very different view of what's in your soil. But still, it doesn't tell you how soil functions. It tells you about the potential or possible potential of the soil, but not how it functions. So we're still missing that part. And you may have seen this drawing before. This is the soil food web. And the first time I saw this drawing, I thought, oh man, I just came out of a landscape architecture program. I'm all about graphics. I can clean this up in no time. And then I learned about the soil food web, and this is actually quite simplified. It shows the plant in the sun. So you've got solar power there for the plant, and the plant is taking carbon out of the air. It's making this liquid carbon sugar that it's sending down into the roots and out into the soil. And that's really how the plant communicates with soil microbes. And it feeds the soil microbes while it's sending a message for what it needs. Then you've got all these different soil microbes in there, and there are predator-prey relationships. There's all kinds of stuff going on. There's nothing simple about it. If I were to add one thing to this, it would be a big old cowpat. So large ruminant animals were developed, evolved in nature to eat crappy grass and make the soil better by leaving organic matter and microbes behind. We had lots of ruminant animals moving through our area on a regular basis. And I'm not talking composted manure. Now, if you take all your cow pats and you put them in a big pile and you let them sit there, we're told that we need to do that because there's too much mineral, there's too much fertilizer in the manure, so it'll burn our plants. Well, if you have enough organic matter in your soil, that's not a problem. Organic matter is really a buffer, and I won't go further into the science of it, but that's another whole thing we could talk about is EH in soil redox potential. So why do we want microbes? Well, that big blue thing in the middle of the screen is a root on a plant. That's James White up in the right-hand corner. He teaches at Rutgers, and he has wonderful grad students, and they're doing incredible work staining all sorts of microbes and roots to see what's actually going on. This is how nutrient is getting into your plant. We have two fields of science that didn't even have names 10 years ago. So we have rhizophagy, which is just a study of how microbes in the soil and roots act in relation to each other. And we have phytophagy, which is how leaves and microbes act together. We have the same folks have video of leaf surfaces, microbes on leaf surfaces, taking nitrogen straight out of the air. And I'm not just talking legumes. Far more plants than legumes can take nitrogen straight out of the air. If they've got NH4 that they can produce because they've got everything they need in terms of microbes in the soil, they can split that N2 and have all the nitrogen they need. Different minerals are available from different microbes. This is the rhizophagy cycle. Again, a picture down there on the left, you've got bacteria going into the root tip. They swirl around in that root tip. The plant makes a superoxide, strips the mineral off of the bacteria, puts the bacteria up against the wall of the root, makes an ethylene glycol that starts a new root hair and shoots that bacteria back out into the soil with the message from the plant of what the plant needs. So the plant is going to feed the microbes that will get the plant what it needs. That's how it's happening. Different minerals are available through different microbes. So it may be bacteria, it may be different kinds of bacteria, it may be different kinds of fungi. And one really important law of nature that we should never ignore is that if something is unhealthy, nature's way is to kill it off quickly so that those minerals and hormones and everything else in the body, whether it's a human or an animal or a plant, get it back into the soil so something healthy can grow from it. So pest, insects, and pathogens are everywhere. And they're an important part of the ecosystem because their job is to kill off things that aren't healthy. But there are lots of things that we've called pathogens that we're finding out that when the plant is healthy, when the plant has that the whole association with microbes in the soil, all of a sudden those pathogens start working symbiotically with the plant. So endophytes, we used to classify endophytes as pathogens. If you Google it tonight, you will see things for endophyte-free grass. Ooh, doesn't that sound good? Get rid of the endophytes, they're pathogens. Well, guess what? The endophyte that is interacting with this root is taking Pseudomonas bacterium out of the soil into the root tip, sending it all the way up through the plant. It's going to the bottom side of the leaves, and it's spit out of the plant through the stoma and the underside of the leaf. It's going up into the atmosphere. It is a catalyst for water vapor to come around the Pseudomonas bacteria. It makes little ice crystals. As those ice crystals gather around that bacterium, it moves down further into the atmosphere, and that's precipitation. That's either snow or rain. So this is going directly from your soil through the plant into the atmosphere and bringing more rain for your plant. So it's really a stunning system. And because we keep studying each part of it separately, we miss the greater system. So the two most important things you need to get this system working in your soil is organic matter and microbes. So these are all ruminant animals. And if you had a ruminant animal in your backyard, you could move it around pretty quickly around your yard and you'd get your microbes and organic matter. But if you don't have a cow, a sheep, or a goat, or if you don't have a herd of these guys in your backyard, where are you going to get your organic matter and your microbes? Well, your compost should be a source for a really diverse microbial community. And Rodale makes a big point out of the fact that if this compost gets really hot, you're going to cook your microbial community. So they put a picture on their website with that thermometer stuck in there. Commercially produced compost is regulated by different government agencies. So EPA here, because, for instance, Missouri Organic, to get the organic produce to add to their piles, they had to agree to take meat and milk. So EPA makes them take their pile to 180 degrees. I don't cook meat to 180 degrees. So they're really killing off all your good guys. One of my mentors who worked at Rodale, James Sotillo, did projects all around the country and in other countries as well. And he never found a commercially made compost that had the kind of diversity in it that you want to have. And in fact, he found too often that he would buy compost that looked like it had lots of great microbes in it, and he'd get it down on the soil, and 24 hours later, most of those microbes were dead because they were not what he needed to associate with plants. They were very good at breaking down stuff, and you need some of those, but you also need all these other guys that are going to work with your plants. Most likely, your untended compost pile in your backyard is going to have a better microbial community than anything you can buy in a bag. And I give this company major snaps for doing a test. This is a soil microbiology test, but as you can see in here, it lacks diversity. So you've got low fungal biomass, inoculum and foods may be required, bacterially dominated, becoming more bacterial, lacking species diversity. So you've got some things that are good, but like the nematodes, the only ones you have are nematodes that eat bacteria, and that's because it's a highly bacterial compost. And so what Marty's going to talk about later is a way of getting compost that has more of a fungal component to it. So this is a way of getting microbes. You know, you may not have enough compost to start with. You may not have a big enough pile until next year. So you may have to buy your compost this year. Unless you get Marty to come over and help you build a bioreactor in your yard. So first of all, these 3 books that are down at the bottom of the screen, if you read these 3 books by Jeff Lowenfels, not only will they blow your mind entirely, but you will know pretty much everything you need to know about microbes, nutrients, and fungi. They're excellent books. He guided the development of this product, Organic Plant Magic. It's an excellent product. I know the people who developed it. I know all the ingredients that are going into it. It's one of the ingredients I put in my tea. It's really great stuff, and you can buy a small packet like this. I think this does maybe 1,200 square feet, and it's about 25 bucks. Kingdom Aquaponics was developed by my mentor, Leighton Morrison, when he was working at Rodale under Elaine Ingham, the goddess of microbes, and James Sotillo, also my mentor and friend who's gone now. But Leighton was working at Rodale during the day and then going home at night and coming up with his products. And he is now out in California working with large growers, but you can still go to his website and get products from him. And additionally, I get some of his product to put in my compost tea as well. And then the Mad Hatter compost tea is what I make. And my aim with it is to make it as diverse as possible, sort of a shotgun effect to get as much stuff out there so we get whatever will interact with your plants going. Now, when you go to buy compost, you know the next thing they're going to want to sell you is mineral amendments. So this is a sort of guide developed by John Kempf, one of the best farmers I know. So everything on the top half is macronutrients, everything on the bottom half is micronutrients. So if somebody's telling you you need trace minerals, well, all of these things on the bottom are trace minerals. There is no one product that is going to get this all to you. And if you try to affect your soil by just buying a product and putting it on, you can really unbalance your soil really quickly. And never try to solve pH. The only place that pH matters is about 1 millimeter outside of your roots. So you can do a chemistry test. I wouldn't bother with a saturated paste test. What you want is what is microbially soluble in that soil. So to bring this back to us, you know, we've been having these winters where we really don't have winter at all. We had fall until spring, where, you know, this is a day where it was 64 in the afternoon and it was 10 degrees at night. And so our plants are going through this entirely confusing, you know, back and forth between days above 50 degrees and days below freezing. And all winter long, the buds on our trees are opening further, which is what they're supposed to do. But then we get a late freeze like we did last year, and a polar vortex came down, and we lost, this is how we get a polar vortex. There's not enough temperature difference now between the Arctic and the equator. And so we have changed the thermals high up in our atmosphere. And so we get this terrifically unbalanced mix where suddenly a polar vortex comes down. Last year, it wiped out 99% of the peach production in Missouri and Kansas. And further south, we lost $300 million of citrus crop. So when I'm saying we need to do this because we want to be able to grow food outside in 10 years, I'm not kidding. It's a very damaged system, but we can fix it very quickly. So this is a friend's house. He spent 10 years going to grass pad and buying products, trying to grow grass here, and spent a lot of money and didn't have any grass. This is what it looked like on the left when I got there. And lawns really aren't my thing. I don't really care about lawns, but soil is my thing. So we got there October 20th. I got compost. We spread it 1/4 inch thick, just top dressed the lawn. Charlie had put down some seed the night before we got there. We put the compost on. I hit it with tea, and 10 days later, he had a lawn. That's how quickly. Now, it's not a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet. I went back the following year and put down another 1/4 inch of top dressing on it, hit it with tea again. But he's got lawn underneath these big oaks. I would rather he had native plants. He does have some diversity in what's growing here, but we can fix this pretty quickly. Whatever you do, keep your soil covered. When you keep your soil covered and you have good microbes, you're actually pushing your photosynthesis rate way up. We can test it with a refractometer. We can see what's happening and whether or not you're getting that good photosynthesis going in the middle of the day. And when you have leaf cover over your soil, not only are you keeping the soil cooler, but you're actually, the carbon does respire back out of your soil. You have a chance to catch it with a leaf again and send it back through the system. The small water cycle that they talk about in the Kiss the Ground movie is massive. And 40% of the rain that we get here should derive from regional evaporation, condensation, and rain. We can do this. This is how we stabilize our weather so we can continue to grow food outside. And that's me. So I'm happy to answer any questions and talk about this to ad nauseum. Thank you. And I will stop sharing.
Thank you. And Marty Kraft is up next. Marty, are you muted?
Yep, I was. I'm not muted now, so look out. I taught science and biology a long time ago. And I was also an Earth Day organizer. Let me share my screen here and give you a few slides. Wait a minute. Hello. There. Plants and microbes built the life we know. The forests, the prairies, and with our cooperation, they can rebuild it. So our soils are badly damaged, oxidized. Most of the carbon has been oxidized. When you oxidize it, it makes carbon dioxide. So, and it's up in the atmosphere, and it's the greenhouse gas. But the greenhouse gas is the climate is actually about 95% controlled by water. And this small water cycle that we were seeing is part of the cooling system of the planet. And let's see where we are. Here's a picture that they show around. It's all the hyphae of the fungus sends out these little hyphae, and in a cubic yard of soil, you might get as much that will go around the earth a couple of times. And so that's all carbon. So if we make what Walter Yeni refers to as the soil carbon sponge, then we slow down the drought, and we keep the plants photosynthesizing more time because they're not slowed down by the drought that much, because there's a tremendous overload of moisture in that soil carbon sponge. So let's see where I'm going now. Here's Walter. Excellent. I would suggest that you don't just listen to me, but pick up one of his videos and look at that. I would love for you guys to educate yourselves. Walter Yeni gave me hope again, because it looked really dire, and it still does. But the dire part of it doesn't have to do with the science of it. The dire part has to do with our brains or our emotions or our culture. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I want to tell you, he advocates the soil carbon sponge, which will help the climate, but it'll also help our health, because the microbes in the soil actually deliver the best minerals in the best combinations that the plant needs, and then we eat the plants and we get them. So it's not plants and soil and us. It's all one. It's a unified thing. And then as we and one reason Walter is so interesting to me is because he's talking about the soil carbon sponge in agricultural lands. Most of these people talk about it in agricultural lands, but here we are in the city. We don't have cows to run in our backyard. So if we can build, this is Johnson and there's Sue, S-U, that's her last name. And so I made about 23 of these bioreactors since last December, not just December, but a year ago. So I'm gung-ho on this, and I do this for my grandchildren. I just, I enjoy it, and I am so passionate about it because that these little microbes in the soil have quorum sensing. That is, they're sentient. That is, whatever you do to these, the least of these, my brethren, you do to me. I say that to a crowd that understands what those words mean. So if we treat this thing like there are equals, we're not the top. we are not. We would be, if we were all gone, everything would settle down and it would be great. It would be wonderful. We'd have prairies, or what took the place of prairies, or we'd have rainforest. We'd have all of it all back again. And it's us that we're in the way. And it's our brains, our emotions, whatever. So I'll help anybody who wants to build one of these build it. And then there's this woman. Where is she? Hello, come on. It's not working. There she is. Christine Jones from Australia. What she says is, you can't just walk away when you're done. You got to have all kinds of plant life in there, a diversity of plants. So instead of just planting monocultures in your lawn, put a bunch of stuff in there. Put little violets in there. Put clover in there. Your neighbors will get over it, and my grandchildren might stay alive, and your grandchildren. So I don't want to just single mine out. And here's a couple people who are making a living doing this. Gabe Brown up in North Dakota. All these people have videos and stuff. You can look at this. You can look at this stuff. This is better than the university right now, because this is cutting edge. Science being linear, and we're kind of linear. We think along a line. Well, the earth is all at once. It's dynamic, and these people are realizing that and putting it to work. So here's another one. This is Mark. He'll be up here in a minute, right there, that guy. And we're building a bioreactor up at his place. Let's see. Here's me watering one. Lots of water needed to grow fungus. And then, lo and behold, we have a photograph of some fungus growing. So I'm excited about that. This is at KC Farm School over in Kansas City, Kansas. And then, you know, we had some fear about the bioreactors freezing. So, so here's some pallets behind, make a kind of a sunlight reflected thing, so that when it goes down, the compost bioreactor has enough warmth to not freeze. And then if that isn't enough, we've got an IBC tote in the ground, and we feed it with leaves and food waste. And it makes heat, and it goes up through this tube up in here, and this is all covered with leaves, so it doesn't look so horrendous. And then Hilary and I and Mark and Maggie, who's sitting next to Mark, giving him some slides, and KC Farm School and Sankara Farm are all together on this. We've got a grant to actually build these things and prove it more thoroughly. I think it's proven enough on the ground. That farmer that's making money should be proof enough. And here's me yakking at some students from UMKC. And they helped us build 3 of these reactors, and I'm going to build. I want to build 500 of them. I want to inoculate all the land in Kansas City and make it carbon rich. And I just take this one method. This is not the only way to do this, but this is a way that I can see it's packaged, and we need packaging. Okay, so now I'm going to go into some other strange information here. What happened? You know where European languages are spoken, and you kind of wonder where the indigenous people are. Well, they didn't fit the mindset of the Europeans, and they didn't really come to give, they came to take. Now that doesn't mean all of them, but enough of them that we have the society that we have today. So, you know, when they burned the witches in Europe, they were changing the way things work. They're doing the same sort of thing that is happening over in Eastern Europe right now. People changing the way people think by just killing them, or making them ineffective. I have to give you more information than that, because I wouldn't buy that. There are, okay, here's what I've been reading. This is Mad Bear, and Mad Bear is an Iroquois medicine man. He's no longer in the flesh. He's passed on, but he has direct knowledge of things because he lived in the environment all 24/7. He learned to read it deeply, and here's a book called The Magus of Strovolos. This guy was on the Isle of Cyprus. He's much like an indigenous person. He's a healer. He's highly Christian. Here's Lame Dare, is the one I'm reading right now, and he's a medicine man, can heal people. Here's Mystics, Magicians, and Medicine People by Doug Boyd. Doug Boyd has done a number of biographies. He did Mad Bear, and he also did Rolling Thunder, Who Can Make It Rain, or Who Used to Make It Rain. I met him in British Columbia years and years ago. Let's see. Then there's Black Elk. This is all mystical literature. This is not science. Maybe it is science. Maybe it's where science ought to go. This Living with Himalayan Masters is another one by Swami Rama. I'd recommend these things to Magic and Mystery in Tibet. It's a woman who pretended to be a man to sneak into Tibet. Anyway, these folks all have direct knowledge. We have this linear stuff we work with. It all has to be in a line, and it all takes more time. What I think we need to do is take what's best right now, what we see in front of us, and you know, I'm trying to change my gardening. I was over there today, and I'm trying my best to listen to the plants. I'm a little wacky, I must agree, but I have a rational side that can look at the wacky part, and then I have this wacky part that, when it's really in force, it's smarter than the linear part. So anyway, some of you who have gone further in your religious studies than what meets the eye probably know what I'm talking about, and I feel sort of isolated in that I can't see you. But I can do that. I can change that, because at least I can change part of it, because I can stop sharing, and then I can at least see the faces that I can see. And if you look at the faces, and even where the names are there but the faces aren't, you know there's a consciousness looking. You know that there's a being looking and taking in information and sharing. And when you get together and you feel this kinship that you have with each other, that's something that I call presence. And when things go silent, you can feel something. I call that presence. When I look at the space between us, when I look at the space between me and the wall, it's emptiness. Well, I've learned that nothing is really something. It's way something, and I don't know. I don't know where. Well, I know it. I mean, I have so much evidence in my life that I see this, and the reason I'm reading all these crazy mystics is because I want to crack open that direct knowledge channel. And I think it's possible to do that. And I'm just going to keep trying, because evolution has to have a breakthrough.
Thank you, Marty. I think we need to leave some time for Mark. We got
to do that.
A little bit of start. Thank you very much, both Marty and Hilary. And let's hear from Mark now.
Cool.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for all your listeners. And Monday night is usually our community building call. So you'll see some young people on the screens around, Levi, Michael, Liz, and some mentors like Kathy and Joel. These are all our people. And these people are just some of many that are all around you. They're asking for change. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself first, and then we'll get into what's going on. I own Antioch Urban Growers. It's an 11-acre sustainable living farm. It's right on I-35 between Antioch, north of the river, and Shoto. So it's about 11 professional football fields all put together with some woods. And then there was an abandoned nursery center on it that I bought about 10 years ago. Had some greenhouses. And so me and my brother bought it. And we just started kind of playing because I had just retired. I retired from ministry. I retired from 36 years of serving people at UPS. I was a UPS driver and just loved people and loved to minister to people. Retired. I was going to go out and save the world for Jesus. And I think Jesus just spoke to me one day and said, I think I got something else for you. He just put me on this 11-acre farm and just kind of started teaching me things about life in survival mode, kind of. Whole bunch of stuff happened to me when I retired, divorce, death, and some people. I just found myself with what roots I had sunk deep, which were roots in loving people and believing in people and encouraging people and challenging people to do a little bit better than they did the day before. That was kind of my deal. I was an evangelist. So I really could, they called me in when the chips were down and I would get people over the humps in life, and then we'd go forward, and then everybody would kind of grow religious, unfortunately. And then would come some more humps in life and they'd need to pump up. So they'd call the evangelist in. I'd come and make people happy because I do love people. And my observation in the world, we can go to my things here. My observation is in the world of this world of being a retired minister and service provider is that we got a lot of work on our hands if we want to see a world as we know it continue. We got to have a lot of action if we want to see a lot of the world as we know it continue. And I'm very optimistic. I work with people and love people who I think are under the weight of the realities of the world we're living in right now. Climate change, wars, nobody really knowing their neighbor. And we just go through a pandemic where everybody's separated themselves from groups of people. And so there's a lot of loneliness, a lot of fear, a lot of isolation. And I think it's time to rally the troops in my own life, not from a ministerial position, but from just being a good neighbor and being a friend, being a dad, a grandpa, a great grandpa, boyfriend to my tech partner over here. I'm telling you, there's a lot of really cool stuff that can be taking place right now, and it's going to take action to get it. So we all started life looking out into the stars and thinking how wonderful it was, because it wasn't bondage. It wasn't being captive, or it shined this possibility of freedom out before us when we looked into the sky. And then all of a sudden somebody gave us a little thing with a stick on it, and we could kind of make our own stars. And all of a sudden we became maybe we thought ourselves in control of making something equal to the stars. But some people actually, when they were young, said, I don't want to just this little thing in my hand. I want to look out farther, and I want to see clearer, and I want to know what's out there. And I believe that's a beautiful thing, but I'm afraid what happened at that point was a whole lot of people started making their escape route from reality, looking out into the stars and not dealing with the what-sos in life, which is the fact we're all grounded. Not only are we grounded, but we're dependent upon what's right under our nose. And the stewardship that I believe we were given as humans, I'm a little bit different in some of my persuasions. I come from a strong Christian background, teaching the Bible myself. And I see a lot more now since I've become a full-time farmer that would lead me to believe that the stewardship principles that Jesus was talking about were all around the people he was talking to. The people he was teaching understood what the soil was. It was their livelihood in many cases. And they respected it. But just like humans today, we all grow comfortable. And I would say one of my observations is one of our key hurdles to jump over is our addiction, yes, we have an addiction to convenience. It's just so easy. It's just so simple. It's just the way it's been done for so long. It's just the way we can get by, sleep good tonight, wake up tomorrow and start the whole process over again. And I'm thinking what's under our nose is the answer to all of our problems. And this picture shows you life in the soil. And I was raised on a farm, and we did everything traditionally. I walked behind the tractors when the sprayers were spraying, and no telling what got all over my body and all into my food. We didn't know any better. Some of you know north of the river, you know where Weatherby Lake is, maybe out north of the river. It's a very exclusive area now, but that's where my family actually in the 1920s were farmers with horses. They had a tractor, but a horse made more sense to them. So they didn't drive the tractor, they drove the horses. And let's go to the next. So if we're going to look out with a desire to escape this planet and its realities, like being attached to the soil, and maybe even resign ourselves to the fact that we're going to be committed back to the soil, at least the bodily part of us, I think we better start studying maybe our home, our future home, start making our reservations and plans for the return home, for the physical side of us. I'm a believer that the spiritual man is released from the earth at the point of death. But I don't think he's going to go running off far. Matter of fact, the scripture tells us the whole earth is going to be renewed. And that's going to be a home for somebody. I would hope it's me, and I would hope it's my loved one. I hope it's my friends. I hope it's y'all, because we can get on the other side and we can look back. But right now we've got to look forward. We've got to see what challenges are coming our way. Because as you just saw in the previous slide, our world is doing that right now. It's just drying up a little bit at a time in some places and accelerated rates in other places. And it's directly related often to human intervention, a lack of human stewardship, and basically an addiction to the way things were, and not taking the bull by the horns and looking into the future and saying, what can we do? How can we come together? One of the things that really convinced me to be on the speaking area was Marty's share with me about quorum thinking and how already quorum thinking is taking care of the soil needs if we allow it to do so. Quorum sensing in our own microbiome in our stomachs will take care of so many of the problems we're facing as a species. Our guts are dying along with the soil. Maybe in response to the death of the soil, we're dying a little bit inside every day. And we aren't going to get no better without action. So I'm just going to conclude because I don't have a lot of time to speak, but the life is in the soil. And that's where we need to focus. And I have this 11-acre farm, and I pretty much concluded to kind of give up on the older people other than them being mentors and focus on the kids. Because right now I deal a lot with, and have for the last years, dealt with the autistic community. For years, we brought busloads of the autistic community seniors from North Kansas City School District in to get green experience. Many of them would never be able to hold a job, but they were going to school every day with your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids. And you can see all of these children, young adults who have been put in these positions. And I want to take responsibility for my part of it. A lot of the things that I did in the past as a farmer, I did not know. A lot of things that I'm being asked to do right now as a farmer, I really don't understand. But everything I see tells me I've got to start doing things outside the box. We're working with grants now from the National Science Foundation. And one of the requirements of that grant is You got to think outside the box, people, because we're in a place right now that the box and keep looking in that same box is not going to bring us the deliverance that we need. But the box where we might all just jump in that box one time together, fight it out if we have to, come up with some sort of plan and just start being active. Because I'll tell you what, people are fearful. As a businessman, right now I'm open for business, and all day long I talk to people who are filled with fear. They're filled with energy because of that fear, and they don't know where to go or what to do. And just with a plan, some sort of plan, you get people together and you get people working, you get people loving, and you get people having community, building some. We have karaoke in my greenhouse. We have potluck dinners. We provide food for chefs, young chefs. And right here on my phone call, I see several young people that are literally future changers. They're part of our people, and they're excited about doing something. And I would just assert that the battle is ours, and we can win this thing with action steps, with plans, and with empowerment of who we are. Quick scripture: 1 can chase 1,000, 2, 10,000. Why don't we put 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, maybe get 100 people together? And I see it already taking place before me, really. I see us winning this game. Even though our backs are against the wall, I see us winning this game because we have friends in high places. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, speakers. Who's going to field the questions?
I guess it depends on the question. So do we have questions in the chat? I'm just looking in there now and I don't see any. So yeah, who has questions? Ask whomever.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I'm Calvin Bay, and I'm over in the corner. Well, I don't have my name punched in, but listen, I need to get together with you folks. I love you. People that I have met: Jeff Lowenfels, Elaine Ingram, John Kemp. He's not only the best farmer; he is the smartest farmer. If you know anything about John, Gabe Brown. I've met these people. I've been to a lot of the Acres USA meetings, and yeah. If you know about that organization, but there's 1,000 or 1,500 sometimes people that are getting together. They're looking for these kinds of things too, and of course they're very much involved with it now. And some good things are happening. I'm a little more optimistic than I was when I retired in 1999. I started organic gardening when I was, well, I guess I'd be 35 at that time, in 1970. So I moved here to the Kansas City area about 3.5 years ago. But before that, I was in a two-acre farming endeavor in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I wrote a course. I developed the course for teaching high quality gardening. I don't know. I'd never really found the right name for it, but probably had 600 students over the last 15 years. All day classes, tours, all of that stuff. This stuff rings true to me, every bit of it. Now, there's some real challenges, and I know you're speaking to a select audience tonight, but it's way over a lot of people right now. But even just dealing with the very basics, the 5 things that are considered now critical for converting to regenerative agriculture aren't that difficult in the terms of concepts. So I just want to introduce myself and say I'll be seeing some of you, and I look forward to it.
Calvin, can you authorize Jerry to send us your email address? So that...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'd like to mention also that another one who is works with us a lot is Stan Slaughter of Missouri Organics. And Missouri Organics has a program now where they're going to have 3 yards that they will make over according to these kinds of principles. And they've had more than 33 applicants to do it so far. So, super. And they will involve them all in some way. And so there's potential here. I also wanted to mention that Stan's Missouri Organics, they have a product called Biologic, which as I understand, is somewhat of an inoculant of the microbes that are needed to go with compost. So so there are various commercial availabilities of this kind of material.
Yes.
Who else has a comment?
Well, I think that what I've been seeing here is something of the future, and I'd like to be a participant. Don't really know how, but am interested. I'm Daniel Karam. I'm co-chair of the Kansas City Green Party, and there's a lot to do in that arena. But I think this is a real important area.
Thank you. Certainly there's a political dimension to it because we need to, the Department of Agriculture is working on soils, carbon sequestration in the soil. And of course, the more we get the soil biome involved, the better that sequestration will be. So we need not just to work with our hands in the soil, but also with our votes and with our political contributions too, supporting candidates who recognize all this stuff.
Jim, I have a question for whoever wants to answer. So I have 12 acres. It's been pasture for horses and that sort of thing, recreational use. And it was overgrazed by the previous owners. And, you know, I've been looking, I've got a tractor, so I've been looking at buying a no-till or renting a no-till drill to put some seed down. But, you know, I don't want to put fertilizer down like what they normally do because I have a pond and I know it's just all going to run down into my pond and turn it into a mossy mess. But is there an affordable way? I just imagine buying compost and spreading over 12 acres might become costly. I mean, is there an economical way that, you know, some guy who just has land for fun can, you know, rejuvenate his soil and make it good for, you know, just having good grass and native flowers and that sort of thing?
Sure, yes. The reason that Wei-Chun Su developed her idea for the bioreactor with David Johnson, her husband, they wanted to come up with a way for farmers to be able to put something together in a few hours, wrap it up, put automatic water on it, and walk away from it for a year. We haven't actually gotten one to work yet, but I think we will. We'll figure it out. We're working on it. Then you could use that, you know, if you build 1 or 2 or 3, you can use that as an inoculant, or you can spread it directly on the soil itself. There are lots of different ways of doing it, and growing carbon is a really good way. But you have to have some way of getting the microbes in there to begin with. So that's the idea for my product, is that I don't intend to make this long-term. I don't want to be the regenerative Monsanto, you know? this is something that I'm doing now to get this stuff going. And then the idea is that then we don't need it because we have all our own great stuff, and we can build it for ourselves. So yeah, and I'm sure Marty and Mark and the other folks who are part of this also have ideas for you. I'm happy to come up and walk around with you and take a look and give my take on it.
Great, thanks, Hilary.
How about a multi-species cover crop with radishes that can kind of drill down a little bit, and or maybe you could what is a keyline plow where you actually go down and aerate the soil, or I'm not even sure if that's correct.
Do that. Don't do the so. Be careful how much brassica you use. So the tillage radish is a brassica. Brassicas tend to grow a lot of actinobacteria, which chew up fungi, and get more actinobacteria as your soil is going anaerobic. The thing about plowing, so yeah, you're right. You could plow once and then mitigate for it and never plow again. But every time you plow, you're going to tear up any mycorrhizae that you have, whether they're endo or ecto.
That's right.
It's going to take you at least 3 years to rebuild to where you were before you plowed. There's a lot of damage you create with that, but getting the Johnson Sioux to work and getting the microbes in that, and just top dressing, because those microbes are going to turn that into your soil. They're going to build your soil. They're going to build your 50% pore space that you want in your soil. You don't have to do that. The plants and the microbes will do that.
So maybe just, I mean, we have different pastures, you know, they're divided by fencing. So maybe you just start with one and work on it and get that improved, and then move to the next and that sort of thing. So I can talk about individually for a more specific plan, but it sounds like that there are ideas, you know, on, I mean, I understand, like Hilary, when you were talking about top dressing that yard, I'm just like, well, that sounds great, but that's obviously, you know, much smaller scale than,
right,
you know, a pasture, you know. So
well, and if I had a pasture, I'd do a lot more than 1/4 inch. But Marin soil, I can't think of the name of it. They did some experiments. Again, it's California, so it's different. But they tried a 1/2 inch of top dressing on broadacre, and they found that a 1/4 inch of top dressing got them almost as much benefit as a 1/2 inch, which is really good to know. If you have ruminant animals, get your forage fields right first and then bring your ruminant animals in. Otherwise, it's really hard. And you don't want to be giving them warmer or antibiotics or any of that stuff, which tends to mean that you need to cull maybe as much as 20% of your herd every year. Once you get past the first few years, you don't have to do that as much, as long as you're not taking stockers. If you're raising your own animals, after a few years of culling, you won't need to do that anymore, most likely. If you take stockers, you're always going to be, it's going to take a year before you really see them get in their gut what they need. So you're going to have cow pats that just oxidize. You're not going to get the microbes from them because their rumen is already too damaged from the chemicals they've received. So it's, yeah, but you get the forage working first. Otherwise it's really hard. Gail Fuller is a friend. Marty had a picture of Gail. I get all of my regeneratively raised meat from Gail as a way of supporting him as a farmer. He brings it up to town once a month. And I go over to Gibbs Road and pick up my CSA of regenerative meat. But it really took some doing before he finally started getting dung beetles and, before those cowpats would disappear. His first spring, he still had cowpats from the previous fall in the driveway. Nothing had happened with them except oxidation just from the weather.
I also deal a lot with the Amish, the Mennonite, the German Baptist cultures outside the city. And that's something that humans have to offer is ingenuity. And you'll see these people who really don't go to college. They really don't have engineering degrees, and they don't have microscopes, or they don't have telescopes more than likely. But they can tell you how to make something happen by what you do have to work with, like the ruminant animals that Hilary was mentioning about. And then the ingenuity that they use, even without motorized vehicles, by pulling of horses, which it always intrigues me because that's how we got started north of the river here 100 years ago, was horses pulling. And these horses are loved. I mean, these horses are like magnificent, and they're like part of the family. So this is not like animal cruelty or anything. This is taking what they have, what they've been using for hundreds of years, and plugging in some ingenuity, like broad forking. They actually build and fabricate their own broad forking type machinery. And it doesn't have to put any chemicals in it. And the horses, and they have manure spreaders where they actually only take care of the area where they're growing food at first. But you have to start somewhere. I use a lot of Missouri Organics Green Frontier compost, and I mix my soils with a dry mix of all the ingredients that I think necessary. And now we're working on the missing link in this situation, which is the microbial inoculants. And Hilary and Stan and Marty and myself and Maggie, we are really applying a lot of effort towards getting this ground ready in areas where you can start. I tell my people that come to me daily and they don't, my business, they don't know what to do. They say, where do we start? And I always say, start with the soil and just feed your root zones. If you just get one plant, because a lot of my people, they live in apartments, get one plant, deal with it what you can. And we create community events so that we have opportunities to get them into a bigger ideal and a bigger imagination and more intrigue and more ingenuity. And before you know it, the thing that man has, the thing that we have as humans is I believe we're appointed stewards of this place, and we might not know everything now, but there's been plenty of times when we knew enough to get us to where we needed to be, that it's almost like the miracles of life come along and take us over the hump in life. And this is a huge mountain that we're facing, but I think we can do it. I just know we can.
What about worm castings?
Worm castings are good.
The worm castings are terrific. Mark's got a guy at Antioch Urban Growers who's figured out how to use red wigglers without getting any eggs in the worm castings that you use. It's great stuff. Red wigglers are invasive in Missouri, and they are really damaging the woods in Missouri, and especially in the Ozarks. If you're using worm castings, and I do, if you can isolate them, I believe it's a 3-week cycle. So if you can hold on to those worm castings for 3 weeks and make sure that you don't have any worms hatching from the castings, then you know you don't have eggs. But Mark's the guy, I can't remember his name. That's terrible.
Levi. He's right here he's on the screen.
Oh, hey, how are you doing? He's got a brilliant way. I was talking to some people down in Oklahoma last week who have a worm farm, and Levi's got a brilliant way of making sure that you're not spreading red wiggler worms when you use worm castings. Hi, Levi.
Yeah, I want to talk to you too about that same subject.
Yeah, I don't know all the answers about your pasture kind of a thing, but you know, when I started my first gardens I knew I needed to have microbes in the soil. I had a woods behind me. I went to the woods and peeled back the leaf cover, and there was, you know, several inches of nice black soil. I scooped that up and spread it over my garden. I can't say that that's what got it going, but it didn't take very long, and I was seeing that the soil structure was changing. And it didn't take very long, and I could see my crop production was increasing. Before I left, after 17 years on that site, and that very, you know, a lot of careful observation of things. Well, on tomatoes, for 100 square feet, I picked 600 pounds. And in most cases, it would be about somewheres between 6 to 10 times the commercial averages. I would tell my students, stay with what I'm telling you for 3 years and you will be convinced. And I never had a one after I got the sort of the system going. I never had a one that came back and said, oh, it just doesn't work. So I like challenges. Now I'm 85 years old, so don't make them too big. But I'd like to see your pasture and talk to you about it more.
Looks like Michael Adams has his hand up. Michael?
So I couldn't help but hear over the massive collaboration of ideas melding into one, especially when it comes to the soil. My biggest question that I have, and Mark, it actually kind of pertains to what you were mentioning a little bit earlier about how we as stewards, have been on this planet for an indescribable amount of time. The amount of effort we are currently putting into this endeavor to not only heal the planet and also in a sort of shape and form heal ourselves. My biggest question is this. Say the soil is enriched. Say it starts thriving with life. What then? What is to stop it from changing again?
Well, nothing, because we can screw up anything if we want to, or we can make it the kingdom of heaven. But it's a constant thing. You have to just keep doing it. But there's an energy among us that feeds us. Am I making any sense to you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So I've been doing presence work, presence groups, where we get together and we just sit in this energy, and let the energy lead us. And here we've got something physical that we can channel all that energy through. So, you know, we can do this if we will. I mean, it's not that we can't, it's will we, and that's the question I have to ask myself every morning. What am I going to do?
You know, I have a principle that I taught in my class, and that is this, that The default position in nature is health.
Interesting.
Is health.
The default position is health.
Yeah, it is.
If it wasn't, we'd have chaos. Everything would be chaos if it was the opposite. So,
Could you clarify?
Yeah, let me just finish that. Even if it changes, it's still a health. That's the default position. Kind of a quote, law of nature.
So by healing the earth, we heal ourselves.
Yes.
Yes.
Life. There's the principle of service as well. And if we're discovering that this quorum sensing, which it is, they're serving each other already. They've served underneath the soil to package up all the nutrition that we need. They serve to unpackage all that nutrition that we've consumed. And there's this principle of service in the universe, if you will, that I think is probably, if we have any wisdom as stewards, we may just consider stewardship as a way of life. And therefore, even if we go down as a species, we go down serving each other, that it's no man alone, no body alone. It's a community, and we'll reap what we sow, so to speak. But those who serve, we know what they get. There's a reward. And that's something that nature has taught me more than anything, is that my Christian principles are for something on the other side, like the seed that's sown into the ground that appears dead. That's where the life comes from. And so many of the things that we deal with now, it doesn't look anything like health until we allow it and serve it and nurture it. And then it does a work in us.
So by giving love to the earth, we give love to ourselves.
And each other.
And each other.
We're just walking, talking dirt, if you will. We're all soil.
Thank you for sharing, all of you.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing.
That answered a lot of my questions. Thank you.
On behalf of our group of speakers, I want to thank Jerry and Chad very much for hosting us tonight. It was been a very enjoyable discussion.
I'd like to chime in if I may.
Please.
This is Joel Adams. There's a couple of sayings that I try to remember concerning soil health and quorum sensing. Our mission is to out-cooperate the competition. Which may seem like an oxymoron, but is that not what we're talking about? Because it is the corporate competing model that in fact has ruined the soil. And so by cooperating, we learn that cooperation through the microbial communities, through the colonies. And in that quorum sensing, I've heard some microbiologists say that it's the 10% that leads the 90%. And so the change, the inflection point is within the 10%. So I would say that the people that are on this Zoom meeting, you're operating in the 10%. And so the other pithy saying is that the road to health, not hell, is paved with good intentions. And so as we bring our good intentions to conversations like these and our actions that we align with that, and I know some of you there, and I've seen your track record of good intentions. I've seen the ups and downs and the stumblings that we've all made. And I see progress in that area of cooperation. And I see the competition. It's so close. So many people are waking up to the foolishness of war, the foolishness of competing for the natural resources of Mother Earth. So that's just my little addition to the conversation tonight.
That's excellent.
Hi, Marty.
Hi.
I got in real late here.
The Need to Grow is a documentary that's very helpful in outlining what a lot of people are doing around the world and around the country.
Good.
Thank you.
And for others, if you have not seen Kiss the Ground, that's another good resource on regenerative ag. And as was mentioned, Gabe Brown, some others that are in that, Rick Clark. That's an excellent movie to watch on Netflix or possibly on YouTube, I'm not sure.
I started dinner before the call. I haven't had it yet, but I've been smelling it the whole time.
Yeah, I was going to say it's 8:30, and to respect all your time, we could probably stay together talking for quite a while longer, but we don't want to. It's better to leave you wanting more than leaving you wanting to leave a long time ago. And so anyway, to our panel, Hilary, Marty, and Mark, thank you so much. Jim, thank you for helping organize this. It's really informative, and really gives us a glimpse into the depths of the soil that we probably don't normally understand or know about, but it gives us something more to research and to practice, whether we have a small yard or a large farm. And so before I say goodnight, Jerry, do you have any final words?
Not about this topic, I guess. I think re-watching the Kiss the Ground is always a good way to solidify your understanding each time. I think you pick up something new, and I would just remind people, I guess we have another second program next Monday night.
Yes, so April 11th at 7 o'clock, we'll have another presentation this month. And so there's other activities going on across the city this month, Bridging the Gap and Kansas City Climate Council, so many others, 8 Earth Days this month. And so it gives us lots of opportunities to practice what we preach, if you will. And so without further ado, I just want to thank you all for coming tonight and joining us, and hope to see you next week. And Jerry, what our May program, remind me?
I think we're going to have Chick Keller doing a presentation on climate change.
Great.
He has done a KU extension class on that, and he's also done 3 times for SSC, so he's willing to come back. I forgot to mention that next Saturday at Johnson County Junior College, Climate Action KC is having their second Earth Summit.
Right.
And yeah, I talked to the people this morning, and I think they have at least 500 people signed up.
Good.
To attend that.
Well, there's
a huge event.
Lots of opportunities to get involved this month and beyond. And so anyway, so I will say once again, thank you for Jim and to the panel for your wisdom, and for everyone who shared and asked great questions tonight. Without you all being here, this wouldn't happen. So thanks again. So be safe, be careful out there, and blessings on all of you, and have a good night.